Oh my god. The research notes of Master Ruggiero? I don't know who that is. About the Golden Troop. All I know is that that's an artifact set. I don't remember anything else about them, I'm going to be honest. Comparative studies have been concluded on the surviving ruins of ancient orders from across the land. While they all had different names, the scripts and images left behind support the conclusion that they shared the same origin. Ancient scholars believed that all arcane arts originated from a pre-Remurian civilization, a belief that now seems to be much more than mere speculation. Fortuna seems to be the name of a symphony. Remurian musicians call it the musica mondana, or the music of origin. In their eyes, the rise and fall of civilizations, as well as the fates of mortals, are all orchestrated by the movements of a symphony. When a civilization perishes, a new one is always born in its wake. The cycles. Their philosophical system is complex and enigmatic, bearing almost no relation to modern Fontaine's natural philosophy. However, this is hardly surprising. According to historical records, after Remuria was brought to ruins, the refugees fell under the Lochnox Arañes' sway. They willingly forsook their ancient faiths, tongues, and writings, embracing a life of devotion to the gods as our forebears once had. I hinted at the matter to the Golden Hunter in an oblique way, since the Marechaussee hunters, who first pledged themselves to his cause, were all descended from the Loch Knights. Praising the benevolence of Arañes seemed like the safest approach, and inquired about his knowledge of natural philosophy from that era. He was silent for about half a minute, then told me not to probe too deeply into those ancient philosophies, saying there was a reason they had been forgotten. Intrigue. Still, as a gesture of gratitude, the Golden Hunter was willing to tell me the names of these patterns. Well, that looks like a controller. I mean, the arrows are pointing the wrong way, but that looks like a controller, a PlayStation controller. The seal of chemical marriage. Is that supposed to be chemical or chemical? According to him, the symbol is even older than the Remurian civilization itself. Is such a thing possible? And was one of the gifts bestowed upon King Remus by the Golden Bee. Who the hell is the Golden Bee? I've never heard that before. What exactly those were remains unclear. Cool, glad it's not just me. The rise and fall of empires and civilizations, the ascension of mortals and the emanation of light. What is this? Also, glad it's not just me. Even dreams of surpassing the gods. What is this? All of these can be represented by this formula. I cannot understand it at all. He declined to elaborate, and so I can only record these matters here, as they were told to me, and the hope that those who come after might one day decipher their meaning. Well, that shit ain't gonna be me, because I don't know what you're talking about. Keyword word not located. Yeah, I got that. Oh, not this word again. I'm assuming it's auto, and then like mnemonic. So autonucui, I guess. Sermon dictation. Explications on the chemical marriage. I'm going to have to go with chemical because I don't really know how it's supposed to be pronounced. Fundamentally, what the ancient orders designated as marriage was, in essence, an interpenetration of ontologically distinct orthants. I still don't know what an orthant is. As you can see, it is a magic set in motion by 3 particles above the kingdom. Yet, its metaphysical origin lies in the emanations of the 4 particles beneath the firmament. The alchemists of Cambria are prone to disregard metaphysical sentiment and effect, pursuing instead the gold of the ignorant within the material world. It is for this reason that their crude inquiry cannot be compared to the great undertaking we are to achieve today, one that is founded upon ancient Remurian-style theory. 3 pertains to appearance, while 4 pertains to the intrinsic. 7, obtained through their overlap, constitute the number of paths for vertical transcendence. Okay. Well, 7 is an Archon number, so yes, that would constitute the number of paths for vertical transcendence. Yes, makes perfect sense. We designated this process of overlap as marriage, for the union of the 2 through a mediating medium, is akin to the matrimonial covenant of those bound in mutual love. Is it though? I think it's more of a power thing than a marriage thing. Although I suppose maybe in your time, marriage was a power thing. Observe and compute the pathway displayed in the guidance diagram. Deconstructing and reversing its effects could generate potential ideas. Reversing its effects? To take one down from power. Ooh, now, well, that's the word we're looking for. But that's very useful. We can take the Tory down from power. because he's taken, to be fair, he wasn't one of the 7, but he's taken one of those pathways for vertical transcendence. So now we can reverse this. Although I don't think you specify how. Nevertheless, there is one thing everyone must keep in mind. Solve the first half of the equation, leave the second unattacked. But you have all in the clear light, and some, though not all, in the dark. This is not because they possess any sanctity that renders them untouchable, but because they offer no benefit whatsoever to the world formula. Only mediocre minds, foolish beyond a certain measure, would actively seek to trespass upon such prohibitions, because in the eyes of the ignorant, taboo and precious are semantically identical. No, I don't necessarily agree. They found to recognise that in most cases, taboo, like convention, lacks merit for deeper inquiry. Take heed. What we speak of is the act of underlaying your dream upon the dream of gods, of overlaying your law, your will, and the starry sky upon ineffable sacrifices in despair. We do not speak of following emanations to achieve ascension to the ranks of gods. This is a base dream doomed to perish within an eggshell. Well, tell that to Dottore. What I aim to teach you all is the principle of transcendence, the infinite expanse, and the innumerable stars within it. You too must act in this manner, unbound by any constraint. Sorry, that's Dottore. To choose division for the sake of a convergence is a necessary path of motion. To choose division for the sake of... yep, okay, no, I follow. At its core, magic is the science and art of effecting change according to the consciousness. Marriage is the instrument through which the art is realized. It is neither the subject that creates art, nor the object that art is created upon. The subject is always and can only ever be consciousness itself. One who is free from the weakness of consciousness bows neither to the gods nor death. One who is free from the weakness of consciousness. How the hell are we going to utilize that? And which of us is going to utilize that? Cinderone? Traveller? Columbina? Okay. Well, that's our answer right there. That's the right book. Yeah. It wasn't passage, it was pathways, but semantics, I suppose. Let's keep going. Ancient log. It seems the ordinary diary machines can no longer satisfy him. As a result, the director used national resources to obtain something truly horrifying. Rumour has it that someone was nearly killed. I hope this will help him achieve his research objectives. They even got him some rare diary mechanical parts being studied by Sumeria researchers as part of the package. Things went out of control for a 3rd time. Guillotine may be willing to risk his own life, but that doesn't mean the rest of us feel the same. I came up with the emergency damage control strategy, and I hope we won't need to use it before he finishes his kinematics research. However, given his personality, it seems unlikely that he'll ever truly complete that research. It seems that his experiments into machines were intended to create a mechanical dog as proof of his accomplishments in kinematics and material science. It's actually a good idea and can be showcased in the city, and the creature is much more personable and likable compared to the automated turret next door. Can you imagine a turret being personable? At least he lived long enough to be poached by the Mosharase hunters. It wasn't easy for us to survive this long either, but what will we do with this blasted crazy killing machine that can repair itself? Whatever, that's a problem for future generations. Oh my god. Oh, Elaine, what have you done? Ancient log. Jacob Ingold. Anyway, when it comes down to it, our research directions are different, so I applied for a new research lab with the director. But there's nothing for it anyway. Elaine is incredibly intelligent, but he only trusts himself and doesn't trust our observations or accomplishments unless he reaches the same conclusions through his own calculations. Prick. Well, it's okay, since Elaine is making the world a better place in his own way. I trust him. That was your first mistake, because this is the world that Anne lives in. Even though the Institute is full of people, I don't have many friends besides Carter. It feels like everyone kind of dislikes us. That's because you're both dumber than the rest of them. Sorry, it's true. Renee managed to acquire something powerful to research. Apparently those appeared after the disaster. And are very dangerous for most people. But I feel okay. Maybe my constitution really has gotten a lot better. I helped Renee out. When I visited him, I found out that he also attended Narcissus Cruz Institute. We didn't tell him about the vice director abandoning us, or it would have made him sad. If only we could have helped him just like I was helped. After discussing it with Renee, he finally agreed to give it a try. He said since it's dangerous, everything needs to be made clear to Carter, and he must make the judgment himself as it concerns his own life. But if it's successful, then he'll survive just like I did. Wait, what? I don't remember Jacob's fate. I thought it was just Carter and Renee that had the issues. I don't remember Jacob's. Or is it Jacob I'm mistaking for Renee? I don't know. Ancient log. Following Guillotine's instructions, the research went well. We've created a clockwork mecha that can release energy. To be honest, we no longer need to call it a clockwork machine, as it doesn't rely on elastic potential. It'll be compelling to see what results he achieves next in kinematics. There's no way old-fashioned clockwork mecha can withstand such power output. Even young geniuses must stumble now and then. The thought of using this sort of unstable energy source is impressive. Though we have long observed these unique energies in Fontaine's atmosphere, water, and organisms, it has always been regarded as a latent threat rather than a potential source. Aren't there a few young geniuses too many nowadays? The director is pleased, sure, but won't someone spare a thought for us ordinary people? I mean, not all of us are as simple-minded as Sherpius. Don't talk about Carter like that. It received a very high rating. If the patent were to be granted, the potential financial gain would be considerable. However, I decided to decline the opportunity because the machine was practically all Guillotine's work, and I can take no credit there. My family was quite angry about it, but as an engineer, one must have at least a little dignity and self-awareness. Still making improvements, and output efficiency has increased. Seems to have been specially recruited. That's good. Had he continued that line of research, who knows what horrors he might have unleashed. At this stage, we have to pull out. The director says everyone will be given a position and research resources after reconstruction, but I'm afraid if it were me, I would use this as an excuse for a major shake-up. People like me won't get recalled anyway. Never mind. I've been pretty happy these past few days. I guess I'll consider it my retirement. I'll go to the city and open a small workshop, repairing watches for folks, cameras too. Right, I'll see if I can make a waterproof clock. With the way things are going, I might make a killing in the future. I'm assuming this is one of those dudes who had the business along that run in Fontaine. Actually, it can't be because this is a very long time ago. Never mind. I just remember that we had clockwork camera stuff, dealings on that street, but that's irrelevant because this is hundreds of years ago. Okay. Polonia is done. Please don't make me read anymore, ma'am. You never know what could be relevant.
Otonki Sermon Dictation. Explications on the Chemical Marriage.
So she's saying chemical.
These titles are pretty esoteric.
The entire entry is esoteric, but it's important and has clues.
Observe
Clues,
and compute
Sandrone.
the pathway displayed in the guidance diagram. Deconstructing and reversing its effects could generate potential ideas. So, it's one of Renee's draft lectures. Deconstructing the pathway. I suppose that could lead to a breakthrough.
Wait. So we knew Renee was working on the thingy that was going to help Carter and his disease, and it went to shit. But I didn't realize that had implications in divinity, as this text seems to imply. Oh no, there's one more space. Please no. Please no.
This is so long. This guy sure loves showing off his knowledge.
And he speaks in such vague, airy-fairy terms as well. No, don't do it. What's your next
Polonia.
directive, ma'am?
Search keyword tree model and bring me all relevant books.
It's a whole other table. Oh, she requisitioned the flagship. I thought she was setting up shop at the curatorium. Why have you got to be like this? Why? The History of the Decline and Fall of Remuria, collected edition. The ocean gave birth to all, yet also devoured everything. Legend has it that in the first era, the earliest peoples were self-supporting in their virtue, needing no laws or authorities. Pfft! Ha! Pay to see that. The envoys of the heavenly city walked the earth, and with their guidance, the people enjoyed enduring peace, prosperity, and abundance from the ancient days. This heaven-blessed reign lasted countless generations, until people grew tired of their inscrutable eternity. Their offspring ceased to listen to the oracles. Instead, they desired things never promised to them by the divine, trying to break free from their fate. Enraged by their behavior, heaven sent gigantic waves to smash the settlers' cities. 100 days of rain came afterwards, and the roaring tides drowned all sin and arrogation, and thus were the early peoples brought to an end. When the tide receded and the earth was revealed again, no cities nor civilizations now stood above the high waters. Survivors and the newborn alike lived amidst the forests and rivers, shorn of all knowledge and wisdom. Human lives were no different from those of wild animals on the earth or in the sea, driven on by the laws of nature, muddling through time with neither beginning nor end. Untold years passed. There are 3 fucking pages? Jesus Christ. The throne of Gurubad was established and overturned in the far south, and the noble kindred of the east once reached the rim of the high waters, all while our ancestors remained bound by ignorance and superstition. Civilization and order were finally restored to the land named Fontaine, the day the great King Remus descended upon Merapis in his golden fortuna. He taught people how to farm and raise crops in the land, and built temples and cities with giant rocks to house the people. Most importantly, it was he who spread the beauty of music and art, which differentiated humans from other living things, causing them to see themselves as masters of all things. With his immortal fleet, Remus conquered all the islands of the high waters. Even the great dragon beyond the abyssal depths submitted to his power. Those were the best days since the end of earliest peoples, and eternal prosperity seemed so near at hand. The God King and his people indulged in the sweet dreams of carefree lives and fantasies of never-ending progress. However, the seers prophesied discord. The greatest empire will face the most utter destruction, and this is Fortuna. Thus did the God King derive the primordial plan from the 7-day rotation and the flowing winds of sea and land, and composed a harmonious symphony of prosperity. He believed that so long as all cities echoed with the greatest of songs, they would escape the judgment of fate and at last reach the land of eternal bliss. But thus do the ancient writers concur. Oceans will rise, empires will fall, and the only constant is change. Greatest in glory unto Remuria and its immortal ruler, Remus, king of all under heaven and universal harmist. Today, the glamour and luxury of the bygone eternal city is beyond the imagination of even the most knowledgeable scholars. As you sailed past the ocean pillars along the royal fairway to the giant port playing host to Fortuna, the imperial ship, you would have first seen a lofty tower. The Tower of Remuria was not built to receive heavenly oracles, but to guide ships travelling between islands in the high waters. It is said that the tower stood at the border of reality and dreams. Even if sailors were to be lured into slumber by sirens, they could follow the sound of the bell to break through the mist and find their way to Remuria. Continuing along the royal fairway leading to Makamos, where the brave Remurian warriors lived. The grand temples and arenas were built with giant carved rocks to commemorate the city's glory and victory. The solid and towering walls are decorated with glaze and gold, bronze and marble statues arraying the land, and gold, spices and specialties from the world over piled up in markets. Travelling through Makamos, you would arrive at Capitolium, the centre of Remuria, overflowing with delightful aromas and beautiful melodies. It was a paradise for artists, where only the most outstanding intellectuals and musicians were allowed. Even among them, however, only a small fraction enjoyed the privilege of serving the God King. Here, all the theatres and palaces were established in shapes most harmonious, their beams and domes adorned with the most sumptuous and intricate carvings, and centred on a golden palace of towering copper pillars. The king, resting peacefully at the heart of the palace, listened closely to every melody and every note coming from every corner of the empire. Upon hearing any discord, the God King would correct it immediately with a pluck of his strings, bringing perfection to the symphony of his empire. To keep all the people upon the high water from destroying the symphony of universal harmony, King Remus promoted 4 humans of great capability to high post. He shared his power and authority with them, making them his partners in governance, the harmists for all cities, to eliminate all discordant sounds. To spread the harmonious symphony throughout the world, he built far-reaching fairways, which conveyed the melodies as never-ending ripples from Capitolium to every corner that sat above the high waters. Yet fate's decree was not for even such as gods to defy, and to even attempt to escape destined judgment was a mortal sin. Amongst the if he's a God King, does he care about mortal sin? Really? Amongst the God King's sins, the most terrible was the attempt to pass power that should have been reserved for the godly domain to humans. Thus, this power and status led to corruption and decadence, leading to violence and revolts. Such is fate's cunning that it uses the very powers that rebel against it to its own ends. When the day of destiny arrived, Remuria, the grand immortal city, faced an inevitable end. Today, the God King's melody is played only in Capitolium, and his mighty reign has ended. Thusly do the ancient writers concur. Oceans will rise, empires will fall, and the only constant is change. Humans in their naivety once believed that the reign of the King Remus in his eternal city would surpass time and fate to last thousands of years, just like the giant rocks comprising the ringed ritual sites. You can tell I'm reading faster and faster and faster because I want to get through this. Until that day, when the earth collapsed all at once, the tall tower was uprooted and drowned in the titanic waves alongside the great halls of pillars. Until that day, when the royal fairways and temples were reduced to ruins, and the city, along with its residents, warriors, intellectuals, nobles, and even the Golden Palace, as glamorous as the shining sun, fell into a chasm of eternal darkness. That was the moment when the absurdity of their eternity finally dawned on them. Glory to our noble navigator, the ruler of rivers and seas, and the queen of all waters. May she defend the law, and may her reign be long. Peace be upon all the realms of Fontaine, and all the people under the heavens. When the royal city collapsed, the great power shattered, and the people above the high water were perched on the precipice of barbarism and annihilation. It was our noble queen who settled the conflicts between the tribes. Around the flowing springs we established cities anew, and started a world guided by laws that has endured to this day. The tragedy of Remuria occurred merely a century ago, but its history has already become concealed in legends and superstitions. This does partly come down to the fatal catastrophe that destroyed it. So ruthless and swift was the disaster that all the researchers and literature capable of passing down said knowledge now sleep beneath the waters with the Eternal City. Have these people never heard of fucking paragraphs? Another key reason is the purposeful distortions created by the mysterious researchers who claimed to be descendants of Remuria. My job is to extract and reproduce the true, essential shape of this magnificent ancient civilization with the universal rationality of history. In certain folklore that exists today, even the greatest of ancient scholars have been painted as soul-stealing magisters who entrapped mortal spirits within specially made magical golems, binding them into service. To be sure, the Remurians did make such terrifying golems, which to this day may be found ruined out in the wild. But this may only be blamed upon the moral degeneration that came upon them in Remuria's latter days, as people had forsaken their noble duties and embraced hedonism and debauchery, accepting the violence they inflicted on others, and thus were they also violently destroyed. Just as the ancient writers concur, oceans will rise, empires will fall, and the only constant is change. Jeez, sweet baby Jesus. That was only the first one. Oh my god. It's all blurring together at this point. The biography of Guillotine, Deluxe Edition. Oh my. Chapter 7. We're in chapters. Guillotine in his later years. No one can know the root cause of every incident in this world. Humans are neither wise enough to predict the future, nor able to stop unfortunate accidents from occurring. It's a shame. There's nothing more to say. Alain Guillotine, in response to a question about his early years from Nellie Cochran, chief editor of Steambird. After retiring from the Fontaine Research Institute, Guillotine declined all invitations from the Palymonia and civic organisations from the court of Fontaine. Instead, he withdrew to the Beryl region countryside, living in near-total isolation from society. Notwithstanding, even prior to this, the reclusive old man had never formed any deep connections with others. If we were to take Madame Nellie Cochran at her word, then Alain Guillotine was, at heart, a lonely shut-in, always burdened by a profound sense of insecurity. It was for this reason that he maintained a detached attitude towards others, as if by pretending to be unperceptive, he could hide the keen sensitivity of his spirit. He could not ease his own pain, nor share it with anyone. All he could do was enclose it like a pearl within the shell of his heart, shaping and polishing it with his very flesh and blood. Of course, Guillotine's students would not accept such claims, dismissing them as attention-seeking nonsense and nothing more than a smear on their master's reputation. This was the main reason why Rogier Cotes, the third director of the Fontaine Research Institute, filed a lawsuit against the Steambird. He never employed any servants to tend to his daily needs. There were rumours that, in his youth, he had created a mechanical device capable of independent thought and had used it to assist him in his work with Mary Anne Guillotine at the Marechaussee Phantom. As a result, he had no need for servants. He only needed to create more of the same device. However, such claims were clearly at odds with the facts. The personal effects that Guillotine left behind after his death include nothing of this nature, and so-called mechanical devices capable of independent thought are entirely inconsistent with the ideas he expressed in his manuscripts, as he wrote in hierarchical calculating machines and intelligence. The real question isn't whether machines can think, but whether humans can. Fontaine Natural Philosophy and Engineering Science Press, 3rd edition, section 13, page 5. We have every reason to believe that whatever contraptions Guillotine crafted in his workshop in his later years were deliberately destroyed long ago. After all, it's hardly uncommon for an engineer to discard their designs. Popular fiction has offered many flights of fancy about his contraptions, yet all such tales contradict the surviving evidence. Nevertheless, we must recognise that, as a cultural symbol, Alain Guillotine's posthumous work has been instrumental in stirring the imaginations of the young. Irrelevant mechanical blueprint. Great! Ick. Time Trekker, collected edition. This is a story from many years ago. After the evening banquet, Miss Aviva, who today would be Lady Nenonon, I have no idea what we're talking about, was, as always, theatrically grousing to us about the all-too-swift march of science. Though her grasp on engineering is even less firm than her knowledge of Watatsumi Island's soil quality. And of course, she knows nothing about the latter either. But self-proclaimed interest in engineering was in vogue amongst some ladies and gentlemen of the time. Who is this? I don't know. Our ancestors had already conquered this land thousands of years ago, she said as she cleared her throat, twirling her jade-plumed and blue gem-encrusted folding fan, while endeavouring in vain to wear a visage of despondency. And a few hundred years ago, they conquered the oceans with ease using new diving equipment. Today, some noble young folks have suddenly got it into their heads to use a so-termed gravimeter to break free from the Earth's shackles and conquer the skies. And surely, I fear, their dream may yet become reality in the near future. Indeed, it is just as you say. Humans. What a mighty and energetic species with such great wisdom. No matter the circumstances, humans ever seek to change their living conditions with unimaginable passion, the Steamboat editor immediately opined. In truth, when it comes to mechanical engineering and theory, humanity is already on par with, oh god, they're 3 pages, with the Creator. They have conquered most of the natural world, and by their will, they could shape this world anew. That's not what I meant to say, Ms. Aviva said with an affected sigh. Those distant and dark unknown continents, those ruins hidden deep beneath the seas, all that romantic exploration and trailblazing, such great achievements, that which has put the glorious achievements of our sciences and reasoning on full display, have all become lost to our civilization. Our forebears reached too high and achieved too much, leaving too little for us to explore or conquer. Could there be a sadder fate to befall those ladies and gentlemen amongst us who were born to crave the exploration of the unknown? Here, her pretentious invocation of the legendary King Argiadai's words seemed an attempt to prove how truly this state of affairs hurt her. However, everyone simply sat around lazily, at most giving polite nods. Lady L lightly yawned. Seeing how no one answered her, Miss Aviva's enthusiasm faded, and she proceeded to switch the topic to next week's ball. This was, evidently, a more popular topic, and the stiff atmosphere once again grew lively. Monsieur Rattard was just about to regale us with a tale he had heard from in Sumeria regarding a tower, a mage, and a glass ball. But before he could begin, Mr. Cyric, who had remained silent till now, interrupted. Good Miss Aviva, the things you said have certainly left an impression on me. He lit a cigarette. However, you need not worry. There is still one space that is yet to be subdued by humanity. Indeed, if the required techniques do not emerge, I fear it never will be. Where's that? Rattard asked, a sudden look on his face. He had been so very confident about his monkey story, after all. Time. The room fell silent momentarily, before all present broke out into laughter. What preposterous talk, Dr. Rainier declared, trying not to laugh. Firstly, how can time be considered a part of space? Can you separate yourself from time and exist independently in space alone? What do you mean? I mean to, at this moment, still be speaking to me, and in the next bit disappear without a trace. Is this possible? He waited for a moment, as if waiting for the others to think. Obviously, anyone with a capacity for rigorous thought would know for certain that much like length, width, and height, time is also a dimension of space. As such, it is part of nature, and can thus be conquered. Utterly preposterous, the doctor muttered, but did not refute the statement. I've been involved in research of this sort for some time, he continued, and I have come up with a machine that can allow people to travel through time as they please. This machine will be ready in 2 months. At that time, Miss Aviva, I invite you and all the ladies and gentlemen present here to my workshop to bear witness to humanity's next great achievement, the conquest of time. Miss Aviva did not speak. In fact, from her expression, our noble friend did not understand Mr. Cyric's words at all. No shit, she wasn't the brightest tool in the shed. 2 months later, we, the Steamboat editor, the doctor, Mr. Ravio Oliver, and others who attended that evening banquet, came to Cyric's workshop as agreed. Miss Aviva was not there, for she had never had much interest in such things, but instead found more meaning in attending a social ball at Salon Caritat. Surprisingly, Cyric had grown older and more frail in just 2 months. In the dim light of the lamp, his once enthusiastic, arrogant expression had hardened into something indifferent and solemn, almost like the emaciated ascetics of Sumeru. He welcomed us to take our seats, speaking in a calm tone. Well then, how is your plan to conquer time progressing? The Steamboat editor asked directly. Where is this time machine you spoke of? Cyric did not reply. Instead, he pointed to the desk next to him. Our gazes followed, and in the middle of the table was a gold-plated, whale-shaped model airship about the size of a small clock. Even a non-professional eye could readily discern that the model was of exquisite craftsmanship. Beneath its clear crystal shell, an indistinguishable and formless colour flowed ever so slowly, glowing faintly in the lampshade's shadow. "So," the doctor said, "it took you 2 months to make this little toy that would amaze even Le Pau's artisans?" "It certainly looks like nothing special," Cyric said, an inscrutable emotion shining in his eyes that could almost be called pity. "But this is simply a projection the object has left in this moment, just as one can see a thin line when viewing paper from the side." Blithering nonsense. For some reason, Cyric did not refute that statement, merely asking us in a calm tone to hear him out concerning his time travel experiences. We agreed, and so he began to tell the story I shall now relate below, without interruption from beginning to end. For all of you, it was 2 months ago when I first told you of the idea of the time machine. Similarly, it must have been a week ago when I finished constructing said device and stepped into it, initiating the very first instance of time travel in human history. The strange sensations that came over me as I travelled through time are beyond words, just as there are no words with which one can impress the star's brightness upon a blind person. About 20 minutes after this, though describing time travel by using subjective time is quite meaningless, the machine ceased operation. I looked about me then and realised that I was in a Remurian imperial settlement. The grand temples and arenas carved of titanic stone would make the opera epiclese hang its head in shame, while the creations of Elaine Guillotin would be little more than a child's wind-up toy before the towering Remurian golems. Just as I was beside myself in awe, a few patrolling troops discovered me. Seeing my strange style of dress, they took me to be a spy for the barbarian tribes. They seized me, knowing me a lowly slave, a degenerate believer and a false god, and threatened to throw me into a deep cistern to feed the vipers. Fortunately, the local aedile, I later found out that her name was Adia Andavana, realised that my identity was anything but ordinary and had me sent before her. She endured my calamitous grammar and catastrophic accent. At the time, I could not even pronounce Remuria, with it coming out something more akin to Emuia, while asking me many questions, which I answered truthfully. Quickly, she accepted the fact that I was from the future and showed me a stone slate that the slaves had recently dug up. Oh boy, look at that scroll bar. The slate was a perfect square, each line and column engraved with 7 symmetrical sequences or symbols. These were not the Remurian script, but rather the characters we use today. Regardless of the manner in which the text was read, or the order or direction, the information within the text did not change. What is it, a palindrome? It was an elaborate riddle involving dogs, pastures, cyan finches, the summer rains, the song of the roses, a wishbone tiger's stripes, and the ordered patterns of rocks. The fuck? Despite my long-time love of wordplay games, this endless cycle of riddles made me terribly dizzy. For some reason, I knew that I must solve it, no matter the price. I spent half a year doing so alongside Adia, and as it turned out, the key to deciphering it lay with the name of a slave now 30 years dead, while the answer was a date set several hundred years after the Empire's fall. I feel like you just chose random things and threw them together, but okay. I bade Adia farewell and stepped back into the time machine, forwarding myself to that date in hopes of finding the secret behind that stone slate. There, I met several Marechaussee hunters, and they showed me another stone slate, which again had 49 mirrored characters on it that formed another riddle. Again, the answer was a date, one set in a future still far off. Following these stone slates' directions, I crisscrossed the fabric of past and future, shuttling back and forth 13 times. Each stone slate's riddle was trickier than the last. One of them could only be cracked using a bad romance novel that would only be published 300 years hence. The 5th word of the 37th page of that book would form a conjugate with the full name of the 375th Maison Gardiennage officer from 375 years ago. Another riddle cipher was based on a white flower that will only bloom several millennia in the future. I know not its name, and its pistil structure is very strange indeed. It might be a mallow of some sort, but I cannot be sure. That flower is nourished by skylark calls. Huh? A flower is nourished by a bird? And so one of the clues to its cipher was the number of ribs on a skylark during Remurian times. I suppose that is, generally speaking, just how the riddles worked. The final stone slate came from the underground storeroom of the Basil Elton Memorial Museum and had naught but one number on it, 0. I do not know what I was thinking at that moment. After all, setting my destination to 0 is an action utterly devoid of meaning. But I punched the number into my machine all the same and pulled the control lever. After who knows how long, the machine stopped. I sensed that I was floating atop a sea with no waves or tide, for even the wind did not exist at that moment. The sky that loomed overhead was not blue, but a dark red adorned with countless stars, pale and distant, like salt frost lining the shore. I stared at this very first of oceans, transfixed, and several minutes passed before I realized that there was something shadowy hidden beneath the placid surface. It was the Palais Murmurnia, which should not be there. At that moment, I heard someone call me by my name. Nevin Cyric, the voice called. I turned, and it was like looking into a mirror. A man, identical to myself, looking me dead in the eye, just as I did to him. Nevin Cyric, he continued, you wish to conquer time? No one can do that. It was you who left those riddles behind. It was you who left those riddles behind. He repeated my question as if it was an answer. Those riddles are part of time, and every matching symbol is time itself. So the final answer to the riddle of time is 0. 0 is not the answer. Instead, it is another mystery, for the answer cannot be found in the riddle, he said. The answer to time's riddle is a mirror, or perhaps I should say that this is the answer that is simplest to comprehend. When two mirrors face each other, time is the infinite reflection of light therein. Countless diverging, converging, and parallel lights form the illusion we call time. There is no past or future, for the past is the future. As you stand here at moment 0 and look forward along the gap between the two mirrors, all beams of light fall along the same plane, and not one may escape. Palais Murmurnia had already sunk long before it was ever built, and the sunken palais will be raised anew. Joy, sorrow, tears, and death must infinitely recur, for this is the nature of a mirror. Similarly, you can never conquer time, just as you can never grasp your shadow in your hands. Perhaps it was horror or momentary frenzy, but when he finished, I whipped out the firearm I kept for self-defense, leveled at his head, and pulled the trigger. The room was silent. I do not expect you to believe me, Cyric said as he stood up, his eyes sweeping the room. Just take it as a bunch of bunk that I made up to cover up for my inability to make a time machine. Make of it some lame tale, a dream born purely of my delusion. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, I shall take my leave of you. My future self awaits a riddle that I must set him. I never saw Cyric Nevin again. That was time-consuming. Great Detective Herlock, the Alchemist and the Clockwork Saint. Chapter 6. Wait, our keywords in this text? Or did I already pick it up? I don't think I picked... Oh, there it is. So the story ends like this. Herlock sat down and lit his pipe. But the rest of us, whether it was Agent Gina, Miss Jacoba, or the Commissioner, Miss Aishie, looked at one another in confusion. You must still remember that the locations of the 4 previous cases were equidistant. There was a symmetrical pattern between the time, space, and even the first letters of the 4 victims' names, Herlock said. This is... I just realized it's... Like, I got that it was a Sherlock Holmes reference, but I just got, like, Sherlock Holmes Herlock. This is also why Gina's deduction was completely off the mark. The murderer knew that she, possessing basic knowledge of the mystic arts, would assume that the followers of the Lilia Crucis Ordo would treat the patient as a necessary ritual sacrifice, so the culprit let her believe that her assumption was entirely correct. But when Duke St. Germanus departed, he clearly said that everything was beyond redemption, and the next case would also... Agent Gina protested somewhat reluctantly. He's only a genius when it comes to mechanics, and everything else he's just an ordinary person. Herlock paused, then continued. He's always been the type to like things he can fully understand, just like you, Gina. Ah, I get it, Miss Jacoba shouted suddenly. My dear Herlock, now everything's crystal clear. The 4th victim's death wasn't a carefully planned murder. It was pure coincidence. He only wanted to kill those 3 unfortunate gentlemen to avenge his comrades from the Lilia Crucis Ordo. But the traps he set weren't limited to just those 3 locations. He was worried that the plan might fail, since the 3 victims were all well-protected figures after all. So he added a few extra traps. Yet he never expected that, with Gina's interference, the plan would go far more smoothly than intended. Miss Jacoba, please don't speak as if I were the accomplice. Agent Gina's face turned as red as the sunsettia as she protested indignantly. How adorable. Indeed, Herlock said calmly. It was unclear whether he meant that Miss Jacoba's deductions were correct, or that Agent Gina was indeed an accomplice. Most of the experimental devices proposed by the Lilia Crucis Ordo are built based on simple, basic, tree model logical structures. I don't know what that means. They do not recognize their own masters, following only the commands that were initially given. So they end up killing said masters. This is why I keep saying, don't put too much trust in clockwork mecha. Unlike humans, machines have no heart. I remained silent as usual, but Miss Jocoba glanced at me with what seemed like a hint of puzzlement. What's wrong? Why are you standing there in silence? Is there something on your mind? No, I just didn't expect the truth to be so simple. Of course, my understanding of clockwork mecha cannot be compared to that of the Duke St. Germanus, but I've done a bit of research to suggest that those mechanisms were merely activated by Mr. Marcello's mishandling seemed a bit too contrived. But to imply that there was another mastermind behind it all felt like stretching into the territory of conspiracy theories. After all, no one besides us could have pulled off the operation I envisioned. So I decided to abandon further speculation, choosing instead to enjoy the reactions of the adorable Agent Gina. This is why you don't understand deduction. Agent Gina seemed to have regained her confidence, not to mention her mild sense of superiority over me. Excitedly, she raised a finger. Isn't there a saying that goes something like, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however, stop right there. That's Fanto's something Miss Rob something's story. We don't have the publishing rights for their publisher. Herlock took another drag of his pipe. He seemed to be lost in thought once more. Regardless, this case came to an abrupt close. A person who did not manage to witness the end, a person who did not manage to achieve his ideals, a person who indulged in fairy tales, who dreamt of following the hero he admired, yet never saw his dream fulfilled. Someone who had everything, someone who lost everything, someone who woke up, someone who would never wake again. Unstinting in sacrifice, unflinching in farewell, undaunted by pain, yet in the end, the sacrifices remained only sacrifices, the partings remained only partings. Clocks tick through tranquil years, fish swim in crystalline springs. No matter how grand the dream is, it will fade away like this, forlorn, wordless, silent. And after that... Oh my god. Are we done yet, Sandrone? I don't see any other texts, so I bloody hope we are. My throat hurts.
Most of the experimental devices proposed by the Lilia Crucis Ordo are built based on the simple and basic logical structure of a tree model. Lilia Crucis. Guess they were trying to cover up the name of the Narzissenkreuz Ordo?
I mean, pretty dumb because they still used Ordo. Although that probably just means order. But they just used flowers. Like a narcissus flower and a lily flower, and cruces as well.
When Duke St. Germanus departed, he said, "It seems that there's no going back." Alas, he is only a genius when it comes to machines. In all other things, he is but ordinary. Excuse me? I'm sorry. That's just ridiculous. What kind of book is this?
And she took that personally.
Great Detective Herlock, the Alchemist and the Clockwork Saint? Isn't this a novel? Come on. Still, the author swears that they knew Renee well. Whatever. I guess it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Renee would say nonsense like that on occasion. Memory, wishes, souls, and persona. Frankly, this sounds more like occultism, but if Albedo vouches for it, I suppose there must be some alchemical basis to these techniques. The way Alain Guillotin saw it, the world was comprised of machines. The universe needed machines, and thus his technologies were created. That's why I was born. René, his full name was René de Petrichor, if I recall correctly. Sounds like he and the town must be intricately connected. That place was also the source of most of our information regarding Remurian civilization. Seems like some of his projects were based on their technology, the cutting of souls and storing them in vessels. These seemingly unrelated techniques underpinned René's research. Assuming that the four orthants correspond to alchemical categories, the chemical marriage model, Alain would have scoffed at that. He never would have let those theories or parameters anywhere near his mathematical formulas.
Correct. Because he wasn't the type to center his ideas around the farcical, the fantasy, the whimsical. The shape.
What was Alain's view on René? I know he mentioned the name, albeit very rarely. Oh, now I remember. Alain's old notes are here too. They mentioned René once.
I swear to all that's holy, if you make me read that...
René seemed most
Thank
out of
God.
sorts when he spoke to me. A lack of sweet foods has dulled his mind, I should think. Either way, his words are not to be believed.
Only because you disagree with them.
Yep, that sounds like Hélène. My subordinates actually did a half-decent job digging out all these materials. Makes a change. Good for them.
That's right, Polonia.
Some of Hélène's old files are completely consistent with these records. He must have gotten them from the Tower of Gestalt. I never knew he got his hands on Renee's records that... He may have kept them, but he never even attempted to use them. Didn't believe a word they said. Come to think of it, Renee's world formula was filled with calculations of constants. That shows he believed that the fate of the world to be predetermined. As for Hélène... it's been too long. I forget what he said. What would he have said? A guy like him, fervent believer in machines, but not headstrong enough. The world can be changed. It is worth persevering. Yes, that's how he used to think at least. He created that procedure to save this world. Yet the scale of the world's fate proved too enormous. The result was beyond his ability to calculate. He died having never seen the outcome. And there I was, left behind in the ashes of his dreams.
How dare he?
Did you really never take a close look at Renee's research? Or did you read it, but deem his philosophy incompatible with your model?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think he read it. I think he understood the crux of it and refused to read it.
The very thought of trying to incorporate his ideas probably made you feel sick to the stomach. Well, don't worry, because there's a whole new category of lunatic in town. Next to Dottore, every other madman looks sane. You once asked me what I wished for. Should have asked him instead. He's the one pining for things you'd sooner die than witness.
But how does it all come
Even
together?
the tiniest variable
What's the
can
plan?
make big waves in the present.
Like, I get the hypothetical plan. Reversing the structure so that you bring down the god, not raise up the god. But, like, how are we actually doing it?
Now then, allow me to put these incompatible
Thank you.
fragments together in your stead. First, establish and verify the existence of the Great Circle.
Ooh.
Absolute
Well,
nihil
like
on
yours.
one end, absolute reality on the other. Now, search between these two extremes. Then, the construction criteria.
It's
Variables.
so pretty.
The sparks of civilization shall run out unless we consider introducing variables from outside the system. Input variables. Traverse the world, space-time, and civilization. Then extract the essential nodes from the records to determine which variables they point to. The primordial power that differentiated itself from the void. The power of light. Yes, light. Records. Hyperborea. This is horrendously complicated. After all that, I'm still missing a few variables. I need to think this through again. How do you think it looks, Polonia? Like the frenzied scrawlings of a madwoman? Fine, keep it to yourself. It's not like you can talk anyway.
You should give him some
I'll assume
voice.
you gave it a passing grade.
Give him a voice, ma'am. He's got his own thoughts.
I jest. But true madness does often start with trying to save the world. What would Arlecchino and Columbina think if they saw this incomprehensible hen scratch? They'd probably have me institutionalized. So would Rosaline. She's been dead for a while now.
You find that funny?
When I close my eyes and think back, I can still see her face. And that enormous dress she used to wear. Such a bizarre choice. What possessed her? Oh, and the clack-clack of those heels used to drive me insane.
I feel like we're veering far off topic. It was fine to start off with, but now we're getting really far from what we should be talking about. We're just wasting time now.
No one's asking me, obviously, but I hope you all know that I never wanted to save the world. I'm not crazy. I don't have delusional ambitions, and that's a clinical fact.
I just find it weird that she's talking to herself, because she's not even talking to Polonia. She's literally just talking to herself.
The world needs a solution, but I don't need the world's validation. It's the world begging me for answers, not the other way around.
Tea time? Wait, where's the tea? He's a slow man. This could take a while. Higher by 6 meters. I don't see where I'm going. The fuck? Where am I going? Oh, over there. It was hidden because it's around the corner. Prepare tea. Bruh. I'm so past the need to pee. Can we hurry up? Again, this episode is like over an hour long at this point, I'm sure. Sheesh. Can we hurry up and end? If you're not going to give me anything constructive, can we end? Okay, pick it up. Let's go. Is he actually holding it? Oh, he sure is. It's time for snacks, madam.
Oh, cookies to go with the tea. Let's see. They must be from that person who brought those documents. I see they're from Hotel de Boer.
They look like fortune cookies to me.
Something's written on the box. We are proud to present this homage to the Fortress of Meropede's fun-filled meal collection system. Fortune cookies. Have a lucky start to your day. Sounds like a dumb gimmick to me. Be early to bed and early to rise. Get plenty of sun and drink plenty of water. Then things will surely go well for you.
Except she's a robot.
What? Are you kidding me? Somehow I doubt that an early night and a glass of water is magically gonna save a world on the brink of existential peril.